Hey, welcome back to the Lead Up Podcast, where we tackle real world challenges leaders face from the boardroom to the break room. I'm your host, Mike Harbour, publisher of the Lead Up Podcast, and we're talking about topics every leader, aspiring or seasoned, needs to hear, needs to know, needs to grow in. Leadership isn't always glamorous, and if I'm being honest, it really is brutal. It's maybe harder than it's ever been before. But acknowledging these truths is what separates great leaders from mediocre leaders. This is episode 417. We're going to talk about 5 brutal leadership truths. I want to challenge you to grab a pen and paper and begin to take notes, because I'm going to give you some real actionable items that you can implement today to make your leadership a little bit better in the year to come. So these are hard pills to swallow, but trust me, they're going to set you up on a path to becoming an elite, respected leader. Here's what we're going to unpack today. Why no one will believe in your leadership until you believe in your leadership. Number 2, we're going to talk about why you can't just wish for better circumstances. You've got to level up your leadership. Number 3, how your actions, not your intentions, define your leadership. And then we're going to talk about why shortcuts might seem tempting, but always derail our success. And then finally, the importance of learning from the evaluated experience, not just the experience that you go through. So I want to challenge you to stick around today. By the end of the episode, you're going to walk away with some actionable strategies to own these truths and to lead better, to be more effective starting today. Now, before we jump in, I want to pose a question to you. Think about this as we go through today's discussion. What's one area where you are letting excuses hold you back from true leadership, from elite leadership, from getting better? Now, again, I talk with thousands of leaders every single year. I coach leaders one-on-one. I challenge them on that question already. Where do we let our excuses, our limiting beliefs, things in between our ears get in the way of being a better leader? And so I want you to keep that in mind as we go forward. I want you to use that as a place to jump into the conversation, as a jumping off point for yourself after today's leadership lesson on the Lead Up Podcast. So let's jump into the 5 truths. Truth number one is no one will believe in your leadership until you believe in your leadership. Here's the deal. Confidence is the currency of leadership. If you don't believe in you, if you don't believe in your ability to lead, then how can you expect anyone else to believe in you? How can you expect anyone else to have confidence in you, to follow you through the rapids that certainly we face in our leadership today, in our teamwork and engagement, those things that we're really struggling with? When was the last time you felt inspired by a leader who seemed unsure or hesitant? Probably never. I mean, when we think about it, we've just gone through, a political season in America, and there were 2 great distinctions between, one leader who maybe spoke with confidence and one leader who didn't. I'm not making a judgment on who's going to lead our country better. I'm just asking you, which one gave you more confidence? One that inspired you? One that did inspire you? How did they do that? Think about the confidence that leaders project. And then think about your own confidence. How does that show up in your leadership? How does it show up in the confidence that you project? Eleanor Roosevelt said this: to handle yourself, use your head. To handle others, use your heart. Confidence isn't arrogance. It's about knowing your own strengths and balancing that with humility as you lead. What Eleanor Roosevelt was really saying is, and it goes back to what my mentor John Maxwell says, before we ask for a hand, meaning before you ask for someone to follow you, connect to their heart. And you have to do that. In order to be a confident leader, you have to get out of your own head, because head tells us you're not good enough, you can't do that, you can't say that, they're not going to follow you. our head gets in our way. Our head will lead us the wrong direction oftentimes. Now, I say that as someone who challenges leaders to grow in your knowledge and your wisdom of leadership. That's like filling your head up with information. But true wisdom is knowing how to use that information to connect with others, connect with the heart of others, to really inspire confidence in them, inspire hope, inspire vision in them, to get them to follow you. So what I'm not talking about here is fake confidence, though. Elite leaders aren't born knowing everything. I think one of the great disservices we've done for leaders in the world is saying, well, that person's just a born leader. There's no born leader ever. Now, some people have better characteristics, maybe some stronger skills than you have. Like most people are better at one-on-one connection or mingling or networking, at charisma. Like I don't exude natural charisma. I've had to develop my ability to speak to others, to connect with others, to have this charisma that is going to give people trust and hope in my message and what I do. That did not come natural to me. And in my experience in working with thousands of people, leaders are developed. They're not born. Some are born with different skills or strengths or traits, but your leadership, your confidence in yourself and your ability has to be developed. So elite leaders aren't born knowing everything. What they do is they develop confidence by mastering skills and building trust with their team. And so one of the things I want to challenge you to do is you look forward. What are the skills that you need to develop? What are the skills at building trust that you need to develop? Take a second and ask yourself this. Where am I doubting my own leadership? Where are you doubting your leadership? What's one thing you can do right now to start building that belief in yourself? One of the things I want to challenge you to do is borrow my belief in you. I'm a believer that everybody has a next level of capacity. Now, you're not going to be great at everything, but I believe you can lift your lid and get to another level of leadership. And that's what my life's mission is all about, is inspiring people to pull out their best, to dig deep, to be better, to get rid of the status quo. So I'm going to give you 3 steps here to begin to develop your own belief and your own confidence in your leadership. First, and this is not one of the 3, first, just borrow my belief in you. I believe if I can get better, you can get better. You can just listen to the Lead Up podcast and learn about my story and where I came from, the zero modeling, the dysfunction that I grew up in as a young man, and know that there's hope in that. If I can get to where I'm at today, so can you. But here's 3 steps you can take right now to begin to build your belief and your confidence in your own self and your leadership. Number 1 is this: develop self-awareness. Understand your strengths and areas of opportunity, not weaknesses. We don't want to label those things as weaknesses. There's areas of opportunity. Like for me, I used to be a terrible public speaker. That was an area of opportunity. Maybe it was a weakness. Somebody once labeled that, but it was an area of opportunity. And I can tell you, I used to take F's in speech class before I would stand up in front of a room and speak. And today I speak in front of people with ease. Now, I'm not going to say I don't get nervous. I do, but I've developed that over time. I developed this self-awareness about myself. I learned to understand my strengths, what I did well in that speaking arena. And then I saw it as an area. I looked at the areas of opportunities, look at areas to grow. I got some coaching, done some training, lots of study, lots of practice. So I developed that self-awareness around my strengths and around my areas of opportunity. Number 2 is develop your strengths and then create a plan to work on those areas of opportunity. So wherever you're strong, continue to develop that. It's like going to the gym. If you're strong in squats, then continue to develop that. If you're strong in the bench press, continue to develop that. Don't let those strong areas become weaknesses. Oftentimes we focus more on our weaknesses, trying to develop those areas, than we do focusing on our strengths. So we want to continue to develop those strengths, but look for those areas of opportunity and build a plan for yourself to get some coaching, to read, to practice, whatever those areas are, to get better in those areas of opportunity. And then the third thing I want to challenge you to do is hire a coach or find a couple of mentors that are good at what it is you think is an area of opportunity for you. If it's coaching others, if it's doing one-on-ones, if it's speaking up in meetings, whatever those things are, challenge yourself to find a mentor or hire a coach to help you develop those skills and areas of opportunities that you really need to work on. So that's truth number one. Truth number two is this: what you want from your leadership is who you are. What you want from your leadership is who you are. Now let me take you where I want to go with this. This is a tough one. Many leaders get caught wishing their circumstances were easier, that their teams were more capable, or their resources were more abundant. But the game-changing truth is this: don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. I heard that from Jim Rohn years ago before his passing. And it completely changed my perspective on my life and on my leadership and my growth. He says, don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Look, we all want the easy button, right? We all want the quick fix. We're so used in our society today to have this instant gratification. And I want those things too. But there is no easy button to leadership. There is no easy button to getting people inspired. And so what we have to do as leaders is quit wishing for the easy button and start wishing you were better, and then go to work there. Aristotle said this: we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. I mentioned earlier, we want to try to push the status quo away. This is the essence of that quote. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. See, if we want to get better, if we want to continue to push the status quo away, if we want to continue to, instead of wishing things were easier, if we want to continue to get better, it has to become a habit for us. What habits do you have at getting better? See, leadership is a mirror. What you want to see in others, and dedication and resilience and resourcefulness, is what you need to embody first. When you lead by example, your team will follow. So when you think about where your team's at, and if they're not where you think they should be, here's the brutal truth: what you want is who you are. And so we have to go to work on self. Am I being the model? Am I challenging the status quo? Am I being elite? Am I getting better? I worked with a leader recently who felt frustrated with their team. It was disengaged. And when we took a closer look, it became clear that this leader wasn't showing up consistently or setting clear expectations. And once they shifted their mindset and behavior with a little coaching and mentoring, guess what? The team began to step up as well. Things began to change. So here's the question for you: where do you see a disconnect between what you expect and what you're modeling? And then how can you close that gap? One of the greatest lessons I ever received in leadership was from someone who reported to me, where I had an expectation that I was challenging my team to go after, but I was not modeling that same expectation in my own leadership. See, we can't have an expectation for others that we're not willing to step into as well. So here's two things you can do to create alignment in your leadership. Number one, create a purpose statement or definition for leadership. Mine is this: when I was made a leader, I wasn't given a crown. I was given the responsibility to bring out the best in others. So what does that mean for me? It just means every day I need to take my crown off. I don't deserve anything. I don't have more rights because I lead other people. I have a responsibility to help them be their best. And when I do that, when I'm continually making myself better and I help others be better, guess what? Everything rises or falls on my leadership. So the first thing is create a purpose statement. What is your definition of leadership? And the second thing is start every day reviewing this definition and in aligning your actions throughout the day to that definition. So start every day like, this is who I want to be. I want to take my crown off. I want to lift others up. I need to start every day, and sometimes I need to repeat that over and over throughout the day to make sure my actions align with what I want. Number 3, actions speak louder than intentions. Actions speak louder than intentions. So it goes back to that definition of leadership. I can't just say I want to take my crown off. I can't just say I want to lift others up. I have to do. Intentions don't build trust. Actions do. So you can have the best vision or the kindest words, but if your behaviors don't back them up, your leadership crumbles. Think of it like this. When your actions match your words, your integrity speaks for you. It's no secret that trust is at an all-time low right now around the world. It's the number one driver of poor engagement scores across the country where we live now. Stephen Covey says this: what you do has far greater impact than what you say. A leader's credibility comes from their consistent ability to turn words into meaningful action. So I want to challenge you to do this. Go back to episode 373. This is episode 417. When you go to the leaduppodcast.com, go to all episodes and just do a search. And search for Catherine Meese, M-E-E-S-E. Dr. Catherine Meese co-authored a book called The Human Margin, Building the Foundations of Trust. And she shares how prioritizing authenticity helped restore trust within the organization after leadership misstep. You can find out more about building trust and authentic leadership in that podcast as well. Learn from someone who's done the research to back up what I'm sharing with you today. Here's what I want you to take away from this one. Don't just say you care about people. Show it. Don't just promise change. Start making it happen. Think of one promise or commitment you've made to your team this year or even just in the past week or month, and then have you followed through? If not, what's stopping you? I always challenge, and I just did this with a leader this morning. I challenged a leader that I was coaching, a CEO, recommended a book for he and his team for next year. And what I said is, don't start the first meeting if you're not going to follow through with the next 12. And I was challenging him to take this book that I'm going to give him and his team and use it as a leadership tool, conversational tool for the next 12 months. But I said, don't start the first one if you're not going to have the second, third, all the way through the next year. Because what we do is we say we're going to do something and then we don't follow through. We break trust. We break integrity. We violate that. Our behavior violates our intent. People don't judge us by our intentions. They judge us by our actions. Brutal truth number 4 is this: shortcuts are always the longest path to success. We live in a fast-paced world where everything and everybody screams for quicker solutions. We want an answer from the internet right now when we hit enter. AI has created some incredible speed to information as well, but shortcuts in leadership lead to shaky foundation. Real success, the kind that lasts, is built step by step. In my book, Quit Losing Talent, it's the framework to transform cultures, to find, retain, keep, build, coach better people. But it's a framework, and it doesn't happen in one class. It doesn't happen in one sitting. It doesn't happen in one effort. It happens over time. And what we do is we help leaders and organizations put that system into place so that it becomes an operational framework that they lead from. Think about this today. Many leaders often take a problem. An employee brings you a problem, and the leader takes over, solves the issue, solves the problem by doing what the employee should have done. But the leader didn't take time to teach the employee or coach the employee along through the solution. So guess what that shortcut creates? The shortcut was, I'll do it myself, it's faster. But what that shortcut creates is the employee keeps coming back because the employee doesn't learn. And then we blame the employee. They never learn anything. Well, you didn't teach them. You didn't slow down enough to really equip them to be more successful in that. And this continues to make your job more difficult as the leader. And it seems shorter to do it ourselves, but it's actually the longer path to leadership because we're not developing people. And I work with leaders all the time that take over the problems that their people, and they have good intentions. They say, well, they got enough to do. They've got their own problems. I can get it done faster. I don't have time to teach. You know, my challenge is you don't have time not to teach today. If you don't have the time to do it right, if you don't have the time to teach it, when will you do it again? Over and over? John Wooden says, if you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? Shortcuts might seem like speed, but what they save in time, they often cost in quality down the road. So I want to challenge you not to skip the hard work of mentoring and equipping your leaders and others. You can't microwave greatness. You can't microwave mastery. It takes time, it takes investment, it takes intention. One of my client companies implemented our QLT framework, and they paired it with leadership training. And it wasn't easy or fast, but in 6 months, some employee retention had improved by 60% in some areas. And that's not just success, it's sustainable success, because now we've got a system in place that helps do that. So here's the question for you. Where in your leadership are you taking shortcuts? How can you slow down to do the work in what actually moves the needle? Number 5, brutal truth number 5 is this. It is only failure if you don't learn the lesson. In this final truth, every leader needs to hear this. Even the best leaders fail. But elite leaders see failures differently. They view missteps as opportunities to improve. And they ask the key questions. What did I learn? How can I do this better the next time? Winston Churchill said, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Leaders who learn from mistakes not only bounce back, but rise above. That's where we become elite. John Maxwell taught me once, he said, Mike, experience is not the best teacher. Evaluated experience is. Meaning, if I just have the experience but I don't learn from it, I'm going to continue to repeat the mistakes. So I must take time to reflect and own my mistakes, because ignoring them, that's real failure. And I don't grow and I don't get better. So what's one failure you've experienced in the last year? Have you honestly evaluated? Or are you brushing it under the rug? How can you reflect on that lesson to become a stronger, more elite leader next year? One of the things that I often talk with leaders about, and it seems like I have this conversation with some of them every year. They get to the end of the year like we are now, and they start complaining about the employee evaluations that they have to do. And I challenge them to coach regularly throughout the year so that the employee evaluation is just simply a copy and paste from 11 past meetings to now it's an evaluation of their annual performance to really celebrate how well they've done or continue the growth going forward into next year. But yet they continue to come back to me and say, I just have too many of these. Well, did you plan? Did you plan block time for the 25 leaders that you have, or are you trying to get them all done in one day? Look, these are experiences that we continue to repeat. It's like taking that hammer and hitting yourself on the thumb, but never moving your thumb out of the way. These are experiences that we continue to repeat year after year. And that, by the way, my friend, is the definition of insanity. If something you're doing is creating frustration, learn the lesson from it and make the changes as you go forward next year. All right, Lead Up listeners. Those are the 5 brutal leadership truths. Let me recap them for you. Believe in yourself. Level up who you are. Align your actions with your words. Avoid shortcuts and evaluate every experience. These truths are straightforward, but living them, that's where elite leadership begins. If this episode sparked something in you, take action. Reflect, journal, talk it out with a mentor. Better yet, share this episode with a team member, a colleague, someone else you know that needs to hear it. And by all means, please don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. Go to leaduppodcast.com, subscribe to our podcast so you continue to get notified. Follow us on LinkedIn where we publish a newsletter twice a week. And then again, thanks for tuning in to the Lead Up Podcast. Hope this episode served you well. We'll see you on the next episode.